This video focuses on the second stage of transformations, 1 year after the beginning, for this quadriplegic boy, originally GMFCS level 5. So this time I've decided to change the sequence of the demonstration and allow you to have a look at the hand function first. So that's what we're seeing. In the supine position, his hand function continues to improve very clear. Whether it refers to the range of motion, whether it refers to the ease of the initiation of the movement, or to any other parameters. Now, one more thing that I want you to pay attention to, since we already covered that in the previous chapter, is the movement of the left hand. What we've seen in the previous stage 6 months before, that both arms improved in their mobility, but the left one was considerably behind the right one in terms of the mobility. That's what we have seen at the previous stage, this restricted left hand movement, and that's what I described in detail in the previous video. Now we are seeing that the movement of the left arm is significantly better. It's much more in tune and in balance with the right arm. Well, but again, I would like to highlight this thing. We did not specifically focus on the left arm at that point, because all this progress still comes from that room for improvement, from the strengthening that was present within the domain of both arms. So it's the entire shoulder girdle improvement. So once again, I'm exposing you to my crude writing here, and I repeat these fundamentals. First is the shoulder girdle as a unit, as a circumference response in respect to the transverse cross sections of the neck, head, shoulder girdle, and the rest of the trunk, rib cage and so on. And only then we talk about the individual arms within it. So once again, this case gives you a clear indication of how well do the things work in the combined response. Now we are looking at the sitting position, and this observation adds a new aspect, a new element to our analysis. Well, we already discussed the relationship between the segmentation weight bearing on the arms themselves and their usage for the weight bearing as well, and then the free hand function. That was one big block that we discussed. The second block we discussed, the second set of nuances we discussed, was the relationship between the shoulder girdle and the selective arms within it. Now we're moving to the next element, next important understanding. You see, this is the movement of the arms in the sitting position. What is the difference between the sitting position and the supine position? The key difference is the level of the weight-bearing challenge. You see, this boy still has remaining, if you look at this level of the abdominal and the lower chest, remaining compressional weakness. So therefore, once he is being put into the sitting position, well, that's an extra challenge. So therefore, typically, what we would see is this relationship. The new level 3, kind of domain 3, the free hand function, manifests the new level of achievement better in the positions which are less demanding in terms of the weight bearing. So lying supine will demonstrate the achievement of the new level of movement for the hand earlier than in the sitting position. Again, the difference is the weight bearing challenge. And that's why in the sitting position, it's great to see that he starts doing the movement, because again, let me remind you that we have started from extreme challenges, the arms not being bendable, and now that's a major transformation. Obviously, the range of movement in sitting and the range of movement in the supine position is very different. Now, the other thing that we are seeing is this improvement of the hand mobility, which is again the key indication. Segmentation being the basis of the movement of the shoulder girdle. let's get back to our cones, right? The room for the movement of the neck and the parallel movement to the position of the shoulder girdle is absolutely essential, because without it you cannot have the selective mobility within the shoulder girdle. Otherwise the child would be facing the conflict in. And I'm pointing out once again, what we want to achieve, we want to expand those cones of movement for the arms. That's another example demonstrating much improved flexibility and the independence of the head movement. And again, I'm reminding the dramatic limitations that we have seen in the beginning, well, which was just 12 months prior. And we can see that all these changes, they brought the difference in the arm movement as well. Now, this boy is being exposed to the next level of challenge, right? Being out of the comfortable range of sitting position, you can see that the quality of the movement of the arm pretty much disappears. Of course, it's still a lot better than what we have seen before, because over here you can see that the shoulder level remains low. It doesn't go all the way up as it used to do before. And respectively, that's why we see the twists within the arm, but we don't see that profound shift of the arms forwards into this W position, which of course made their functional use completely impossible. And once this boy is back to the comfortable cone of the sitting control, well, then we can see that he is clearly trying to explore the cone of the arm mobility. He reaches out, but there are a few components that we have to pay attention to. The head mobility is much better, but it's still not having the full freedom. So therefore there are still limitations where the head movements and the arm movements are not completely divided. And what we are seeing here, a very important component. Please follow the movement of the arm. You can see that the elbow is not being properly bendable. So that's what we would call the fake straight arm, because this is not the true straight arm. This is lack of movement. Therefore, at the next stages, we want to see the improving flexibility within the arm. And that is particularly important when we analyze the left side. This is not straightness. This is lack of movement at the elbow. Therefore, what we want to see the improvement of the circumferential mobility at the level of the shoulder, at the level of the elbow, at the level of the wrist. Of course, with the improvement of the arm mobility, we are not looking for straightness. We're looking for the extra room of movement, first of all, in this transverse plane. That's a very important thing to understand, because in many cases, a lot of children being forced into the sort of what looks as a straight position without paying any attention to their true muscular imbalance. And in ABR, we don't follow this mistake. We go with the child. We want to improve the real neutral position, not to create the fakes. As you can see, these chains of connections, they do work. Improving segmentation brings improving mobility, improving hand function. And here we're looking at the absolutely fundamental component. He is being able to get the shift from the 4-point position. He doesn't fall like a unit. He gradually comes into and slides downwards into the prone position, at the same time demonstrating the release of the arm. So, as I already mentioned, we have seen the link and the connection between the segmentation, weight bearing, and the free hand function, but we also have seen that segmentation, for instance, between the head and shoulder girdle, is still far from being really advanced, and that's why the hand functions, especially in sitting, are being relatively primitive in this boy. Let's move on to the next video, which is going to show us how the things have changed another half a year later.